Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakthrough Moment podcast, where we interview successful entrepreneurs and investors and ask them what is their biggest breakthrough moment. And as they share their breakthroughs with us at home can have breakthroughs as well. I'm Zach Dean. Special guest is Mark Curry. Are you there, Mark?
Hey, Zach. Morning.
Good morning over in Australia. It's been a while. This is our second podcast. We got introduced through a mutual friend, Johnny Baird. And there's many things that I miss about Australia as I've been traveling for about a year and a half. And one of them is all your products. So I'm excited to introduce you to everyone, and hopefully we can get your products over here to Mexico sooner rather than later.
Excellent.
For those of you who don't know Mark is an award-winning entrepreneur, functional nutritionist, honorary fellow at University of Technology, Sydney, UTS. He also works with the UTS startups as helping with mentorship for entrepreneurs. He's a vice chair board member for the Australian Mental Health Charity. He's a lawyer at the Supreme Court of New South Wales, and he's a university medalist and speaker. So the great thing about Mark, what I really appreciate with Mark, is such a hard worker. He's come to a bunch of broth nights, and we got to hang out a few times. But he's just so passionate about what he does, and he lives and breathes his product. I really admire people who walk their talk and talk their walk, so to speak. And so I'm excited for you to be here, bro. Let's dive into it. What has been your biggest breakthrough moment throughout your career thus far?
So the biggest thing is probably a massive shame for anyone who has any amazing ideas based on science. The biggest thing has been science isn't sexy and it does not sell. What sells is correct messaging and marketing and having a very clear understanding of your audience and your target customers, which, spoiler alert, is often not what you write down on the very first business plan. Chances are you're going to attract people you never expected, because you often write a business plan based upon how you believe the product will fit in without even considering a multitude of other different types of people that might want the product. So with Savvy, when we begun, it was a coping mechanism when I was working at Australia's largest commercial law firm. I was trying to compete and stay with the other very smart lawyers who are working ridiculous hours. We're talking 12, 14-hour days as a standard. That's getting in at 8 a.m. and staying until 10 p.m. pretty much every day. And then, of course, the longer days get you until midnight, etc. Days where you'd sleep in the office. It was a lot of grind work and grunt work because you have to have the attractive billable hours that you've done all the work, so you get the promotion, and the promotion comes with a lot of money, and if it's a bit of a rat race to the top, climbing the corporate ladder. And anyway, everyone is having whatever they can to get ahead. And we're talking excessive amounts of caffeine, which comes at a huge cost. So not just a couple cups of coffee a day. We're talking most people have had 3 or 4 coffees before 9 a.m. So, and I was kind of in that group. I'd be getting up at 4:35, have a coffee, go to the gym, have a coffee after the gym on the way into work. I'm out my desk, I'm having a third coffee, and it's 8 o'clock. That's not healthy. And then throughout the day, it's just a caffeine cycle. And then when that's no longer working, luckily there is a huge amount of legal and illegal variants of amphetamines. So we're talking ADHD medications, we're talking narcolepsy medications, Ritalin, Vyvanse, I'm not going to go through all the different names. We know what we're talking about here. Unfortunately, that is a commonplace thing in big finance, big law, big accounting, anywhere, anything where people are working extremely long hours in front of a computer screen. You have to remain focused, and it is hard to when you are sleep deprived and what you're doing, let's face it, is boring. So how do you get through, especially if you're an ADHD personality type, which so many type A personalities in law tend to be, which means you need it to be interesting to get the dopamine hit. And if there's no dopamine hit, then you're looking for it from other sources to find it interesting. So you want to read contracts all day, about commercial things, which you find not interesting at all. But anyway, that was the problem I was trying to solve, at least for myself and the other 3,000 lawyers in the firm. And I looked toward alternative ways to remain focused and energized and uplifted, but without the expense to my mental health. So I wanted mental performance so I could compete with the smarter people in the firm, but also without feeling like absolute garbage at the end of the day, and then again the next day. And just that was unfortunately a lifestyle that a lot of people are falling into. It's a harrowing statistic, but law is number two most prevalent profession in Australia for mental health issues and suicide. And I didn't want to become another statistic. I don't think anyone wants to ever become a statistic. And so I was looking at alternative ways to be able to balance mental performance and mental health, and nootropics ended up consistently coming up time and time again. Um, when I was younger, my mum was always very into herbs, and that was a small influence where at the early days, I'd be the kid who would be like force fed the iron supplement that tasted terrible growing up, and fish oil and all these other like things that are like, ugh, and random Chinese teas and the rest of it. But I always was kind of like, what is the point of all this? And I learned that there is a benefit to having these things. That's why you have it. And so looking at alternative options again, I was now seeing all of these supplements and different ingredients through a different light. And there was a lot of information out there suggesting that this herb or this amino acid or this phytonutrient or this vitamin at this dose will have a benefit. And everything was all there, all prescripted online and set. No one really knows about it. It's not commonplace, especially not in Australia at that time. It was just starting over in America. The concept of nootropics and adaptogens didn't exist in Australia. So I wanted to create something that would help me. I had no idea it would turn into a business. That was not my intention. I was literally just trying stuff out to make my days easier, just to cope. Just because some days you were just a breaking point. I was burning out. A lot of my friends were as well, and again, not a good place to be. So just looking for something. Um, I started by adding simple things like L-theanine into my coffee and realizing, wow, I actually get a longer lasting effect out of this, and also improvement of focus. And that helps out with mood. Wow, that's so interesting. And then research suggests when you combine 200 milligrams or 400 milligrams of L-theanine which is about 14 to 28 cups of green tea, for those of you who want to try and keep par, with 100 milligrams of coffee, which is roughly about a 2-shot coffee. That's a good dose to get started. I was like, this is really cool. It works. And then I learned about a ginseng called Panax ginseng or Korean ginseng, and how that potentiates or improves the effect of caffeine as well. So synergizing. So basically, the sum of its parts, sorry, the whole item would be better than the sum of its parts. I'm like, this is interesting. So similar to how L-theanine and caffeine work, you chuck Panax in there, makes it better. What else would work with this? And so that became an interesting thing I became obsessed with, because the results spoke for themselves. Before long, I had a Tupperware container, which is just a plastic box, those who aren't familiar with Tupperware, and I would buy 22 different ingredients. I would spend the weekends every few months carefully mixing things up. My roommate at the time, I was living in Bondi, and I thought I was really cool, chucking on suits, running and doing law stuff, Supreme Court, blah, blah, blah. But then on weekends, every now and again, I'd be getting all my chemistry stuff out and carefully dosing everything based upon all these scientific protocols I'd seen online and testing. My roommate thought I was a drug dealer because I had bags of powder all around my room. So how could you not? Like, as an example, I'm trying to see if there's any in my office at the moment. There actually is an example. Bear with me. So, literally,
everybody at home, as you're finding your thing there, these are the type of friends that I have back in Australia. These are the visionaries, the health conscious. A lot of people who watch this now are like, finding me for the first time. Like, who is this Zach guy? Like, who does he hang out with? These are the incredible people I hang out with. People that want to like turn coffee into a super, super coffee. It's so great. And trust me, everyone. And just before Mark shares the other, key ingredients, this drink, I don't drink soft drinks. I don't like soda, but this drink is my most natural, like, mind focusing nootropic drink I've ever had. And I've tried a lot of stuff and adaptogens and teas and coffees, and I used to kind of make my own stuff at home. But this one, amongst my friend group, we just all started to have it. They started buying it, and I've absolutely I just miss it. I miss it. Like, a coffee is good, but this is like extraordinary. If you drink coffee, you have one of these instead, you'll stop drinking coffee. A quick pause before we continue. Hey, everybody, please, if you're enjoying this podcast, if it's allowing you to think differently and have your own breakthrough moment too, please subscribe, please like this video, share it with somebody else, and even comment below. I'd love to know what has been your biggest breakthrough moment listening to today. I read all the comments, and your responses help me shape the future of this podcast so other people can have breakthroughs too. All right, let's get back to it.
That was
And the
kind of
coffee
the
that
whole.
you guys have, even more phenomenal. That was delicious. These like pre-made things.
Yeah, like it was. So I was literally buying ingredients like bags of vitamins, and then caffeine powder, which was coming in random bags, which is derived from green tea, and then I was hoping to find more, but must still be more likely at my warehouse. And then like literal just bags of powder that it's herbs, right? But it just looks very sus. And so I had all of these bags of different powders, and then I would have a few different types of scales and micro scales for stuff that had to be very, very down to the milligram and microgram, and then a more common scales for stuff that I could just measure in hundreds of grams. I put it all together and almost like a human paint mixer, I'd shake the heck out of it, and it might be 100 or so serves. And then roughly a tablespoon of that into whatever glass or container you want. Tasted horrific. So you put cordial on top, and then that became this all-in-one, amazing for your brain, focus-enhancing, stress-reducing product. And I know it sounds a bit too good to be true for those who've never come across adaptogens, nootropics, but that's how they can work. Something that can simultaneously increase your ability to focus and have energy, but also not make you jittery and anxious. When you go ahead and you have 2 or 3 coffees back to back, it will give you energy, but it will also give you that bit of fight or flight anxiety. And that's not great. That's what a lot of people become commonplace to, and there will be a crash. Unfortunately, that's just how it's going to work from a simple biochemistry perspective. But if you go ahead and create a different mixture of things, suddenly you can bypass the negative effects of caffeine and still keep some of the good parts, but then make the good parts better, the effects longer lasting, and reduce the downsides. And that's effectively what we did. Sorry, I'm so used to saying we, as if trying to make it sound like a huge operation, but back then it was just me just being a nerd in my old law firm. So I became the weird lawyer in level 6 who was doing all this, making a brain potion or a brain tonic. And that's where it all kind of kicked off, is people were just interested in what I was having, because it was kind of cool. I was just always having this product, and I'd tell a few people about it. And then within 6 months or so, my office became a cafe where there'd be no less than 5 or 10 people from throughout the building that were coming to my office and going, "Hey, can I try one of your these some special brain potion or something?" So and so was telling me about it when we had a meeting. And this would be like all sorts of different people. It might be like a high-level international arbitrator from the London office who's hanging out in Australia for a special conference, who pops in, people who are like law celebrities. And remember, back at 25, 26, I was a big keen nerd in law. So I was like, oh my God, they're in my office. Anyway, that was a big deal, and it was cool. But what was wonderful is the feedback. Everyone would pop back in, send me an email, give me a call, send me a text into office chat, and basically to say, dude, this was actually really good. It was like having like a really, really strong coffee, but like without any of the negatives. But I was just really dialed in. Like I felt like I got so much done. I was like productivity through the roof. And then you don't feel like crap afterwards. You literally you don't crash. You just feel good, but you're not like energized. You just feel focused and ready to work. And I'm like, yes, that's the idea. It's the perfect product for someone who spends long hours in front of a computer screen, who just wants to get shit done. You don't need to go ahead and take pre-workout, which other people were. And like, we're not about to go lift weights and go to the gym. We're sitting in front of a computer screen for 14 hours. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And this is the marathon product. Enough people kept telling me, where do I get it? Where do I get it? And you couldn't get it anywhere. I was excited and passionate to try and make a bit of a difference. And I realized one day this is potentially the way I could make a difference more than law. And because there was no alternative, and I was telling people you'd literally need to do what I'm doing, buy ingredients from all over the world. And I was buying stuff from certain parts of Asia, Europe, and America, sending it to America, and then freight forwarding it all to Australia, and then, which is a massive effort, and then having to work out the actual dose of stuff, which was, again, a lot of time to work out, because it's not just on the internet, hey, this is the right dose for X. Didn't exist. You need to look at scientific studies over and over again with good results to work out how to make it work. There's no clear indication except for trial and error to tell you like what works with what. You just start talking to experts who actually know this stuff, but there's no like Bible there. So I left law, started studying nutrition, started Savvy, wanted to make a difference, and it was very product heavy the whole time. We eventually made our very first drink. That was great. At the time that I left, I had $17,000 and a bit in savings. I still owe the government over $30,000 to pay off my law degree I haven't even finished paying off yet. Suddenly the costs of food pile up when you quit your job, and rent. So I had to move back home with my parents, who luckily took me, and they thought I was going to have like a mental health breakdown, which was ideal. Let me back in. But yeah, suddenly chucking every bit of money in meant that I'm basically going to end up $30,000+, and it's going to keep accumulating interest in debt. So I was like, this kind of has to work. And that was a massive motivator, especially when you then ask for extra money from friends, family, bank loans, and other things, because you're just digging a bigger and bigger debt hole to get started. So nothing but like pure determination, tenacity, and belief in what you're doing can get you through that, which was helpful at the start. Fast forward to now, we now have 19 products. We're now in well over 1,000 stores across Australia. We deal direct to some of the largest office places, not just in Australia, but in the world, like Google and massive banks and tech firms, accounting firms, consultancy firms, which is great because, again, productivity. And then that was fantastic. But in the early days, it was really, really hard. And the huge breakthrough moment, and I'm sorry that it took so long of the story to get to the breakthrough part, was the realization that, yes, when we made our first round of drinks, I could only afford to make 11 and a bit thousand. We sold out in 5 weeks. Love it. That was good. And then we expanded, And then the realization was, outside of my friends who I stayed in contact with LinkedIn, who were buying and telling their friends about, trying to mass market it, I then suddenly realized I suck at marketing. And that is the most important way to sell a product, is good marketing and clear messaging. And the whole time I thought, well, my target audience is people like me. It's other lawyers, it's other accountants, it's other people who just are in front of a computer screen for 12 hours. But then I realized that's not the case. It's actually anyone that would drink an energy drink now has a better, healthier option. And that is the largest beverage industry in Australia, several billion-dollar industry. So that actually should be something I'm also looking after. What about the sporting aspect? Suddenly it goes on, and what about young parents? So suddenly I realized, oh gosh, I need to totally change the communication style, open up the market, but also realize I need to get good at marketing. So then that was a huge breakthrough moment, is just going and like relearning courses and actually spending money and spending time to learn how to actually be a marketer. That was something I didn't do. I did a business degree where I majored in economics and a law degree. I actually did do a marketing part, but I didn't do very well. I don't know. I think at the time I may have done well, but that was so far into the past, I don't remember it. I remember like the 5 Ps and all that type of jazz, but I don't remember how to actually market my own thing. So that was a huge breakthrough, is trying to make science sexy, trying to break down this product that had 22 ingredients that most people couldn't pronounce, and explain to people why it works, how it works. The realization that it's too complicated to sell in mass market. So I needed to make it simpler, dumb it down, like a mental performance drink. People would just be like, what does that mean? So trying to turn it into brain boost, much easier concept. Less is more in terms of the marketing and messaging. At the start, I was trying to tell everyone everything about why it's so great. Like, you can see the amount of text on there. I listed the entire formula. I wanted people to know why it's so good. But no one has that level of scientific knowledge nor nutrition knowledge. So those numbers and those words mean nothing. So then realizing, how do I reframe all of this and repackage it and do education? And education costs a lot of money because it requires a lot of advertising behind the education, which I didn't yet have the money to pay for. So the biggest breakthrough for me was realizing, how do I artfully get through the education barrier without money to then go mass market, which appears to be a huge scaled approach. And that was my creative entry into the market through going through corporates. So trying to reach out directly to people that I could, making very simple to understand bits of information and flyers. I would make things like that were effectively cheat sheets that would have a bit about the product, but only a few sentences, very easy to read, and then a bit about the ingredients. Again, trying to break it all down. This one that you've never heard of does this. Ashwagandha does that. Lion's mane does this. And then also explaining we use this dose because it's good. We use rhodiola rosea, but we use 6 grams. And the reason why is, and then we'd link to the science. Back then, AI didn't exist, so I spent a lot of time in 2017 and 18 and 19 creating the proof study for the product. It was based on 512 clinical studies. Spent, I don't even know how many months on PubMed, just finding studies that like, yep, cool, that's good, reading them, and if they actually worked, add it to the thing, Oxford style referencing, take an actual quote from the study, which actually makes sense. I had a 213-page proof book that showed that our product works. And I was just waiting for someone to go, hey, Mark, can you prove that your coffee works or your drink works? No one ever asks. So I was so ready. I was, oh, one day someone's going to challenge me and I'm just going to bang, there's my book. No one asks me about my book. No one cares. People just believe whatever is said, which coming from a legal background is bizarre, while I'm used to challenging everything that is said always. In mass market, people just believe things. So that's why marketing has such huge power, is everyone has the ability to just go, the sky is pink, and actually it looks blue because of the way our retinas work. And people just be like, that's so interesting. Oh my God, the sky is pink. That guy said it on Instagram. And that was a huge, like, oh my God moment for me. It wasn't a breakthrough, but it was the realization that I am going so far down the scientific way to show all this proof and all the rest of, and people just don't care. They do not care. And that was, I don't want to use the word challenge, but it just meant I spent an enormous amount of time and effort and energy doing things that didn't help me. I thought they would, but they don't. People don't care enough. Like even to this day, I'm still telling people why lion's mane is great when you use the right dose based on all of these studies. And then I will also say that, and then people will say, oh, yeah, but this has lion's mane too. And then my response will be, yeah, but it has 1/20th, 5% of what you need to get a benefit. The dose that's in there will give you no benefits. There is no science suggesting it would. Sorry, that will not work. It is subtherapeutic, will not work. It is the same idea as saying, hey, I have a headache. I need a paracetamol tablet. Now, normally people would have 2 paracetamol tablets, which equals 1 gram. Imagine if you said, oh, I have a headache. I'm like, oh, hey, Zach, no worries. Let me just get 1 tablet. I'll cut up in a tiny chunk and I give you a tiny little piece. Would you expect your headache to go away? Of course you wouldn't. So it's that same idea, but instead of using standard westernized medicine, we're using Eastern medicine or herbal medicine, but it's still medicine, which requires a dose for the benefit. Anyway, so I'm kind of rattling at this stage, but that was a whole big breakthrough.
It is so great. And I really appreciate the story, the little aha moments, the God, explosive moments. Like, it's all part of this whole journey for you. You're such a hard worker. You've put so much detail into figuring out the formulation and why. And I'm the same. I think that's when we first spoke. I was like, oh, cool. You've done the research. That's all I need. You know what I mean? It's like, we just need someone there to say, yes, I've proved it. Or yes, there's like a repeatable effect from this. It's scientifically backed. And then I just want to drink it and get my work done. I don't have time to look at all the stuff. Just quickly before we continue, if you're an entrepreneur out there or a high performer who wants more clarity and direction in life, or maybe you're going through some kind of turbulent transitional phase, I want to share with you something that I co-built. It's called the Life Blueprint System. It's an AI-powered goal-setting process that helps you create a personalized life blueprint, kind of like an architectural plan or a business plan, but for your life. And so it allows you to take and capture those big ideas, those amazing thoughts you have, and to turn it into a proven plan of action. And so if you want to stop guessing and start building your future intentionally and consciously, go to thelifeblueprint.io to learn more. Let's go back to the episode. but I'm glad that
Which
you've
is
done that.
wonderful. And there's a chunk of customers that are like you. I would say, I would venture maybe 5% of customers are like you who just go, wow, this is great. It's scientifically proven. Oh my gosh, I can see the science. It's all on the website. It links to the dose. That makes sense. This is great. I now know to look at the back of any product to double check if it has the right amount of the ingredients. Great. I will have this until proven otherwise. Lovely. The 95%, however, they don't get it. They don't care. They'll just listen to, and that's totally fine. But that's a huge breakthrough moment in terms of being an entrepreneur or just being a business person, is realizing most of the market will pretend to care, but they don't. Um, and they are easily led by anything.
It's so interesting when you really think about it. It's so bizarre. It's so crazy. We all like to think that I want to control my life. I want to choose the best things for me and my family. And like, convenience is not the main thing, but no, convenience is the main thing, really. Like, what is the fact, like when you think about the mass marketing and what you've learned about marketing now, what is it that people want?
Uh,
Results? Like, what is it?
They, I think results is definitely a large part of it, but I think taste is the biggest thing. If you're making a food or a beverage, taste is the absolute queen or king or whatever, whatever you want to go ahead and call it. It's the most important thing. So in early days, like with this as an example, this tasted a bit like a breakfast style juice, a bit like a tropical kind of juice because let's be honest, a lot of flavors in here. It was definitely easy to drink, palatable, but it wasn't as nice as, say, a sugary lemonade or a Coca-Cola. And so people would have it. And weirdly, some of my favorite bits of feedback were executives at certain firms having this 2 or 3 times a day and like literally holding their nose to drink it, and just sculling it, almost as if it was like, as if you're like underage and you're drinking alcohol the first time you want to knock back a shot or two, um, just because they loved the effects so much but didn't like the taste. And when I started actually going to markets and pushing the product out there at markets, even when I moved into 2 separate flavors and improved it a little bit, I still had so many people going, oh, look, that sounds great, but I'm sorry, I couldn't drink that every day. And I was like, doesn't taste that bad. And that was kind of the moment of realizing if you're going a food or a beverage, taste needs to be the most important thing you actually go to, and the benefits become second. Um, so then we reformulated and changed things, and now our products taste incredibly good. What's cool is our drinks, we have 6 of them, and they're all sugar-free, all organic. We don't use any artificial sweeteners, colors, or anything like that. Um, and what's great is when actually people saying this is like the nicest tasting sugar-free drink I've ever had. I'm like, yes, because I'm not competing with just a bloody sugar-free soda. It's so much more. It's a functional drink with like 9 grams of added health benefits in every single product. So like, if you think it tastes really good, that's such a massive win because that's just the first part. But that's what's necessary. So that was on like kind of breakthrough moment of realizing taste is super important. I then thought, what if I took taste away and put it into capsules? What an easy idea to try and do it. Or I put it in an effervescent or a powder. So we started playing with the idea of sachets, and we did make some sachets and things like that. However, people pay for convenience. They love convenience. And so whilst we have products like our delightful calm greens, and we have a calming water powder, and we have calm and all these other different products, in its first couple months, a calm drink, which is an RTD, even though on a per serve amount, this is more than double, getting close to triple of a per serve dose of this. This outsells this by a huge margin. So people will pay way more money for a convenient product when it's just easy to have and it's yummy. So that was a key thing for anyone in food and beverages. That needs to be like a leading thing, is realizing convenience, it goes a long way. When you start to do capsules, pills and powders, they're all great, but a lot less people are used to the idea of opening up a little tub and knocking back 4 or 5 capsules with water. It feels a lot more human to open up a protein bar or to crack open a drink and drink it, especially when they know it's healthy. So that was another thing, is I was leaning a lot into powders. We did our drinks, but the drinks were challenging because they're heavy and you're basically shipping water all over Australia, and Australia's a big country. So if someone's interested in buying a bunch of cartons, I'm sending 30 kilos from Sydney to Perth. That might cost me like $70, $80 in shipping. And if it's a big enough order, I'm paying for it because it's free shipping. It's like, damn it. Like, if only they just bought like the powder, it would do the same thing and be so much cheaper. So I started making all of the powdered versions of products. The powdered coffees, encapsulated, the powdered energy products, powdered calming products. But they just didn't sell nearly as well. And then I try to make them a lot cheaper and explain to people on a per serve basis, this is like 30-something% of that. People don't care.
Wow. Do you still have the coffee sachets?
Yes, we do.
Or they just, yeah.
So this is the
okay,
coffee
good.
sachet box.
There we go.
There are coffee sachets. They're just on a shelf just out of sight, but yes, they exist. This was the cool idea of when you'd like just take a sachet out one at a time to make life easy, just a simple gravity drop. We even have like the coffee pods. So the coffee pods, and you can remove problems as well. Like with the coffee pods, they're for an espresso compatible machines. And the cool thing about the pods is they're biodegradable, fully compostable, the only pod of its kind in Australia or the world that is home compostable. You can use this, put it through your coffee machine. It's made of literal sugar beet and sugar cane, actual plants. I can throw this in the garden or my compost heap. 10 weeks later, it doesn't exist, fully decomposed. And coffee is a wonderful fertilizer, which is great to have in your compost, which then you pop on the garden. Perfect circular idea. So that's what I liked so much about these, is the plastic and foil ones that I used. Millions and millions of these end up in landfill. And like, while it doesn't sound like much, it's the equivalency of like 60 full buses lined up side by side of coffee pods going to landfill every year in Australia. And that's just so much waste. But with this shell, which just costs a little bit more. Oh,
Mark, I want to switch gears for a second. Imagine you could start your journey again, right? You got this idea, you were in corporate, because there's other people out there, they've got this idea, they want to change the world, they're in a job maybe they don't like, and they want a new chapter of life. What advice do you wish you could hear when you first started?
So this is one of the advantage of, at the time I was working as a mentor at UTS startups. I was mentoring startups when I was working as a lawyer, just a free thing where it's just nice to just kind of help out. And I was mainly giving legal advice because that was obviously the area I was specialized in. And then ironically, when I left that, I became a mentee, taking advantage from the startup community, but also being a mentor at the same, which is a bit of a weird hybrid. So, and eventually, and my advice, gone through this, now being back to a mentor, I can now give entrepreneurial advice, and legal advice isn't as strong as it's been so long, but it's still something there for basic stuff. The biggest thing is, don't go heavy into the product without considering all of the ways to work marketing and work launch style and launch strategy, and how you're going to clearly communicate the value, and also the realization that the MVP, or minimal viable product, needs to be extraordinarily user-friendly and not just made for you and your friends. So because Savvy was a business that was never meant to be a business, remembering it was a bloody coping mechanism of a mixture of products together that I had researched over a long period of time and realized this is great. I spoke to friends, spoke to people who are health professionals. Does this work? Is this the right dose? Is this good? Is this good? And then kind of curated this lovely idea. And then it was amazing. And because I thought it was great, I just launched with that with no consideration. So just turning it into this made sense because it was a huge success. And of course, and then this succeeds and you kind of think, oh, excellent. But then you go that next level up of more kind of larger markets and you're like, oh, people actually, they don't care. They should care. Why don't they care? And so my advice would be, consider who your target markets are, the most likely direct ones, who they could potentially be beyond just the most direct ones. So for me, I was just thinking about working professionals, but I did not consider shift workers. I did not consider all of the nurses and all of the doctors. I did not consider people who have challenging jobs who would benefit from this, teachers. There are so many. It's an endless list, right? Police people, fire people. I'm not going to keep listing professions, but there's so many different people that would have benefited that I didn't immediately think of. And then it's also, what's the easiest way to get this to market? And also, sometimes it's good to just sell a simpler version of the product at the start that's easier to comprehend so you can articulate its value without being overly complicated. For example, if we all had very, very basic cars and someone came in with a electric car that could fly and go underwater, and it was in 1990 as an easy example, that would be like so much, what the hell? Like, we skipped stuff. Like, it would blow people's minds a fair bit, and it would almost be hard to articulate all of the bits and pieces of all of the value. So sometimes it's good just to go ahead and just do a little bit at a time. The concept of, if I had just launched with a coffee that had L-theanine in it as a really simple thing, or a drink that had L-theanine, and I just called it a productivity lifting drink that doesn't make you crash, that would have been a knock out of the park. I did not need to have 22 ingredients. 2 would have done it at the start. And I could have then optimized for the flavor to be so much nicer, because I wouldn't be dealing with all of these horrible tasting herbs, which are really healthy, but it tastes bad. I would have been able to make it taste delicious straight away. And I probably would have been able to realize, well, yeah, when people buy drinks, they want health benefits, but they want taste. Well, for me, I was so used to, I didn't care what a product tasted like. I'd be the weird guy who'd go to a juice shop and get like the wheatgrass shots, that are horrible tasting green things, has like grass clippings, but I'd know the benefits, so I'd want the benefits. Well, that was just me and a few of my friends. I didn't go ahead and start speaking to the average person. Would you do this? Most people are like, and so that was another error, is trying to go ahead and get a sample size beyond just some of your own group and friends, and realizing what mass market people actually tend to do. Because had I gone back and started again, I wouldn't have spent all this time preparing the proof points. I would have used a much simpler formula. I would have tried to launch a lot faster because of that. I would have tried to fail forward a lot quicker. I was definitely a bit precious at the beginning about making an error, because I didn't want to. I had imposter syndrome. I just quit a career in law to start a new career as an entrepreneur. I felt a lot of people who saw me make that move were like almost waiting for me to make a mistake, to be like, told you so, get back here in law. So I didn't want to make a mistake. I was playing it way too safe. And so I was also going a lot slower than I ought to have. What would have been ideal was to make more errors, fail forward, keep getting up and fail again. I would have learned a lot quicker. I'd be where I am now years prior, and that would have been a wonderful thing. Also, content is everything. People need to know why the product works. You need to be the face of the brand. A lot of people don't want to be. But if you are the person who has all of the knowledge and the passion and the interest, but I was afraid to at the start. I didn't want to make my own videos or be the person, or even do what we're doing right now as a podcast. That scared me. So the idea of actually going ahead and saying, "Hi, I'm a nutritionist." Oh, God. I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to put myself out there in case, what was I afraid of? Like some random nutrition nerd going, "Actually, Mark, that's incorrect, man." But I literally was terrified of that. And so I waited so long until I'd read so much and acquired so much knowledge that I would actually speak to friends who were naturopaths, dietitians, even friends involved in neurology and neuroscience, food techs. And I'd get to a stage when I'd ask them a question. They're like, "Dude, I don't know. You know more about this than I do." And then I'd be like, "Oh." And only at that stage that I then be like, "Okay, cool. Now I feel confident to start talking to everyone about this," because no one can really then like one up me, because it doesn't seem that's the, but that was stupid, because it meant I've wasted years and years acquiring knowledge where I'm not saying I didn't need to, but I'm saying I would have been able to get the product out there much faster, be told a lot sooner, "Hey man, this is great, just tastes pretty bad, make it better." And then I would have moved a lot faster into the current line of products, a lot quicker, realizing, sorry, I didn't actually realize, you're right. My market is actually not just this, it's this. And you're right, the biggest thing you care about is taste is really important. Great, let me change that. You don't need the kitchen sink in here, so I'll take half the stuff out so I can make it taste nicer. Is that what you want? Yeah, because There's nothing like your product. You don't need to go ahead and go to 22 ingredients. There's nothing out there that even has 2 or 3. So just, bro, chill, take it back a bit. That would have been wonderful, but I was not being as clear as I ought to have been with getting feedback from people as well. The calling up of customers, which is what I eventually started to do a few years in, was essential, and I ought to have done that ever since day one. The very first time I sold some boxes, instead of being like, yes, I should have been like, okay, great, I'm going to check back in with you in 2 weeks and see what you thought. And I want honest feedback. Don't blow smoke up my bum and say, I love it, I love it, I love it. Tell me what you don't like. Tell me what you do like as well, sure, but tell me what you don't like. Break my heart. And that was great later on because that caused rapid expansion and that was really helpful. But had I done that from day dot, I would have saved myself literal, not just like a couple months here and there, but like I would be where I am now in 2023 or 24. Just I spent so long doing not unnecessary, but doing reading and doing multiple nutrition courses, constantly absorbing information, being afraid to put myself out there too much. A lot of people are like, what really is it? I don't fully understand it yet. Well, what I should have been doing is launch events, talking a lot of, I should have set up a huge YouTube channel and a Instagram reels and tried to blow up more of as a personality type. Another thing as well ought to have been collaborations early on. I was almost like, no, I want to do everything. So I didn't have much money, sure, but I even learned coding so I could go ahead and like prep myself for my website. Why? Shopify does it all for you. But I've just moved from law into entrepreneur. So I wanted to know everything about entrepreneur. Before I even settled on like the logo, I studied color psychology. Who does that? Spent like days and days researching why. And I would have notes on it too. And I could literally show you just for the fun of it because I made notes on everything because that's what lawyers do. File notes on everything. My Google Drive is outrageously complex, but it was just because it felt like the right way to do things. And so going back to advice would be, you're going to make so many changes that just fail and fail forward. Do the best you can as fast as you can. Get the MVP out. Prepare to change. Get resilient because you want people to tell you it sucks because what they're really telling you is it's not great right now and here's how to improve. And that's wonderful advice you need. The first thing you bring to market is a draft. It will be crap. And so you need to not get so precious about it and take so long to get it. Get something out ASAP. When it's 80 to 85% done, it's done. Get it out. Get some feedback. Work it out and go forward. I was taking too long to wait until things were at 95%. And that last couple bit takes so much more time. And the more times you take your time, weeks go by, months go by, years go by, before you start to really find some success. And that was probably the interesting part. Like I spent so long working out on this logo and playing on different things, thinking, oh, this is kind of cool because it's a natural drink that helps you think. And it's like an eye test in the shape of a bottle that says Savvy. So it makes you think, what does it say? And then until eventually somebody goes, hey, Mark, cool idea. This is shit. And I was like, oh, it is crap. Okay, let's just do it like that. And also they're like, you also didn't mention on the front what your product is. Like you just said, it's a natural that helps you think. Like, what is this?
Was this one of the original bottles? This is not what it looks like now, right?
This is the very first bottle. This was the first of the 11,000 drinks that were made.
You got to show us what it looks like now, Mark, because can you grab a quick container and I'll just give everybody a little bit of that. I'll jump in here for a second, and I think what I'm really curious about is amongst all the feedback, a lot of people aren't willing to take the feedback in the beginning because they don't want to look like they're stupid or they're not good enough, or they don't want to be seen as a failure. It's a lot of ego, of this, there's a high standard, there's expectations. Like you sound like such a high achiever, right? With all this, and even the value that you're giving us here on this podcast is by far one of the most valuable podcasts on this topic because you're just sharing so many insights and you obviously have so much energy. If anyone wants half this energy, order some Savvy, everybody. Like you can see that he walks his talk, but it's grounded. It's awesome. It's just like super, super clear for high performance. So I'm so excited to get some back. I don't know how we're going to get it over there in US and over in Mexico.
But yeah, that
my
was
question
probably...
is, why didn't you fail? Sorry, why didn't you Why did you continue to continue? Like, why did you choose to continue, and why didn't you quit?
So two very good questions. I think the first part was just extreme tenacity. I didn't want to fail. And then and that's a double-edged sword. The first part is having extreme belief in yourself, belief in the product, and be like, I will succeed because I know I can do it. Why could I not do it? So that was great. The downside of that and the double-edged sword approach, which is I wouldn't want to be seen or perceived to fail. Therefore, I would almost hold myself back and take longer to do things until it's almost perfect before doing a thing. So that would be a lot slower. So instead of just having a basic website prepared and chucking it up there, I would go through it time and time and time again before I'm like, okay, everything now looks perfect. Now I can do it. Silly. I could have launched that website a month ago, gone ahead and just told 10 friends, hey, tell me what's good about this website and what sucks. I'll give you a whole bunch of like drinks for free. Please just give me some feedback. I just need 20 minutes from each of you. And then I could have incorporated that advice, made the changes, and then bang, done. But instead, I'd wait until it's almost good. So it was an ego trip. It would be so friends then go, hey, this is so impressive. The website's really professional. The branding's good. This is great. And then I'd be like, yeah, that's right. Well, I actually even developed that thing myself. I coded it, which is just it was silly. I don't know why I needed that, but at the time I almost felt I did. I think it's because up until that stage, I had always worked really, really hard to achieve things, and it was the imposter syndrome. Like I basically spent 5.5 years at university and then a further 3.5 years doing law, 10 years in total, committing my life to something, which I only really got like barely halfway up the ladder. So in my mind, switching across to a new thing, you got to put in the time before people take you seriously. So, but that's not the case. Like I have like people who are absolute machines in entrepreneurship who are 21, 22. And they're young as anything. They're just out of high school. And they're already like running rings around me in terms of like some of the things they're doing. So you do not need to put in time. You can very quickly learn like the school of life approach is a real thing. Like you will learn very fast by just failing and failing forward, but you got to make sure that you're open to get feedback, to change. And that means you're going to have people tell you you suck. It also means making the right thing, the right calls about what advice you listen to and what advice you ignore. So that was, and also reaching out beyond your comfort zone. You need to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable. I started to level up a bit more when I started to go to a few more seminars and things like that. I did do a few Tony Robbins seminars. I'm sure some people are like, hooray, or other people are like, ugh, whatever. But I found them really helpful because I was playing it safe and taking it slow and playing, which is if you like a great thing that he says, if you want to keep your if you want to fight for your standards, keep them. Like you're not going to change. You're going to remain at this level. But if you want to go beyond and beyond, beyond, you need to start putting yourself out there, doing stuff that's uncomfortable, doing that's challenging you and hard. And then that's when I started to really make some good moves forward, which was wonderful. So yeah, my main reason why was imposter syndrome, honestly just being afraid, being a big wuss, being afraid to fail. So the fear of failure was a huge one. But when you break down why what's the fear of failure? Like why are you afraid? What's going to happen? What's the worst thing? Someone goes ahead and says, "Hey, your first attempt at making a drink wasn't good." Oh no, like it's not that big a deal. But in my mind, I'm like, oh God, that would shatter me. And it wouldn't have. Even at the time, if someone said it, if I'm in a market and someone just goes, hey dude, that's a mistake or that sucks, nuh-uh, I'd laugh. It wouldn't bother me. But weirdly enough, it still kept me held back. So I think it's really important to analyze why you are or why you are not doing certain behaviors, because what you should do is accelerate, fail forward, get things done, get good feedback from the market, work out what you want. You'll realize half the time where you end up in a few years is very different from when you thought you would start in a business plan. So knowing that no matter what, you're going to end up thinking you're going here and you're going to end up over there, that's good to know early on, because that should give you motivation to just go, go, go. Make mistakes. That's fine. It's great. Part of it. Try not to waste too much money, but just keep going forward till you end up where you're meant to be. And that's wonderful. Alternatively, you can do what your Uncle Mark did and take a lot longer, which isn't a terrible thing. It just takes a lot more time to eventually get to where you want to be. And so my biggest advice would be, yeah, don't waste time. And to answer your question, what it looks like now, it's
Yeah,
nothing
what does it look like
phenomenal,
now?
but like
Whoa.
We got 4
No,
flavors. It's just a bit cleaner.
packaging. Look how
Yeah,
shiny
so
it is.
yeah, it was just cleaner and nicer. The whole idea is this doesn't stand out or tell you what it is. It doesn't look particularly exciting.
Interesting.
Um, so
Huh.
it's just kind of working on the. So this is the cola flavor. Each flavor has a different appearance. So cola is red, passion fruit's orange, lemon lime is green, and mixed berry is pink. And then we have in the calming range, we just put the calming range in blue, and then the flavor is denoted by the color at the top and the color swatch there, and also the
Snazzy.
color of the vine. So it's just
Super
kind of
snazzy.
they're just making things a bit nicer and a bit easier to understand. You got to remember that people have seconds of interest. So this doesn't tell you what it is. While this straight away, I can see brain boost, nootropic energy, no sugar, no crash. Cool. So straight away, someone who doesn't understand it, it's kind of like an energy drink. But then on the back, the first thing I say is, this is not an energy drink. It's so much more. Wonderful. So now you know what it isn't, and that's now piquing interest. And then it explains that it's put together by nutritionists as a daily healthy boost for energy, mood, focus, and performance. Great. And then there's a little bit more, but the idea is it's so quick to get the idea. The icons, which are the benefits, people buy benefits, they buy outcomes, they buy dream outcomes. So you need to try and make it super clear. This is what you're selling, a dream outcome. You're selling a result. You're selling a benefit. I'm going to take you from here to here without negatives. If you think of the 4 like kind of value levers as well, people want immediate results. They want them now. They want them as fast as potentially possible. They want certainty in the results. It must work for me, not for her, but for me. And so it must be clearly defined certainty. It must be very quick, has to be fast acting, but it also has to last forever. Endless guarantees. So it's all of these little bits and pieces. And so if you consider some of the large, like kind of value levers, all of your products have to make sure that's really, really clear. It has to be clear, simple, and easy to understand. That sounds attractive in all of the ways that people would want it to. Your website needs to push that idea, and then your content needs to kind of consistently back it up. I saw something interesting by a guy called Alex Hormozy, who is a huge person in business, saying if you're not spending 2 days a week just on content, you're falling behind. And I was like, damn, I'm not spending that long. But I'm spending more than I was before because it is a huge thing. So, and ironically, the first couple of years of business was like 0 days a week. Unsurprisingly, moved slowly because no one knew I existed. So the more things you have out there, the more chance you have of being seen. And feel free to make things exciting and interesting. Like, don't remember science isn't sexy, so find a way to make it sexy if it's a scientific product. So a good way to do it might just be constantly making little jokes or whatever it might be, or it might be silly stuff where it starts on a Red Bull can and then a second later it's smashed off a tee at a golf course, and then the golfer just goes, "Your drinks suck, drink Savvy." I don't know, something ridiculous and silly, but it's entertaining, it's amusing, there's a message behind it, and that might be the opening thing. Then you might chuck on a remix at the end of you for 10 seconds going, "This is not an energy drink, it's so much more. It does this. And that's why it's the new type of product. It's a new category that it's exploding up." Whatever, something easy, but that's going to create moves on social media over time. But I wasn't thinking about any of that stuff 5 years ago.
Got it. Look, there's so much value here, Mark. Look, and I'm be honest with you, I'm salivating, right? I'm like, I want this drink now. So I'm so resold on this. But I'll put the link around this video somewhere for everybody to get in touch. We might even have a little I don't know, promotion and things like that. So make sure you check out the link around this video. Mark, 2 more questions before we wrap it up. AI is changing the game. You know, we've spoken about content, we've spoken about like efficiency, you know, we've spoken about marketing. Like, how are you utilizing AI to behind the scenes to really support you as a business owner today?
So I use it as a plugin. There's a certain program I use for all of my emails. So it actually has responded, pre-done replies based on training of how I normally talk to everything. So it'll label all of the emails for me in terms of this is an FYI, this is a to respond, but it's already responded for me, which means that most of the work is done. That whole like 80-20 rule, 80% is done. So it makes it a lot easier when there's an email and it's already prepared a response for me. Because then all I have to do is just go in there and go, yep, that's more or less what I'd say. Oh, delete that line and rewrite that one, done. And I'm just saving a minute here and a minute there and a minute here and a minute there, but that adds up. It also makes less decisions. A lot of people talk about decision-making fatigue. It's why someone like Steve Jobs always wore the same outfit, less things to think about. So when you're taking effort out of things, i.e. responding to emails all the time, huge removal of like, oh gosh, what I have to think about, which just helps to free you up to get more important stuff done. So that's one way that I've been always using, so not always, but recently using it. Another way is it pretty much does all captions for everything across all social media. It is rewriting and consistently rewriting all SEO for me, which is great. So it's just wonderful. It'll write business plans for you. It creates ideas for you. Previously, I would need to sit there with an A3 art diary, creatively thinking, what can I compare the Savvy coffee to? Or the calm drink? Like when I'm saying drink this instead of that. What is that? Is it herbal tea? Is it pills? And you've got to think and be like, oh gosh, I'm not sure. Well, now I can literally chuck that question into AI. And if I'm not sure if the result's great, I can then try multiple different platforms and it will create an answer for me. Which is one, and I can ask it, hey, create me a graph that does this. Bang, done, cool, on the website. Previously, that might be hours of work. Now it's instantaneous. The SEO aspect is fantastic. Basically, any question, I can basically put it straight into Gemini, to Claude, whatever I want to use right now. Hey, what are 20 of the most common things that people will be confused about and want to know about pertaining to the concept of a nootropic coffee, which does 20 answers, great, cool. Write me 800-word responses that are SEO rich to answer each of these questions. Cool, fantastic. And now I just send that off to my VA. Great, here are 20 blogs, put them out ASAP. Or here are 20 pages, put them out ASAP. Start doing more backlinking and cross-linking across our website. Fantastic. I can now create an alternative website that's just the whole idea of just information, and AI will do it all for me in seconds. Then I get my VA to start using my own account so she can do it in a very quick amount of time, and it just creates an enormity of SEO, which is a huge way to get found online, obviously. Another one as well is images. So this was with the assistance of AI. Hooray. I then needed to go ahead and create mock-ups to then be able to sell it. My designer was like, oh yeah, I'll be able to get you something by the end of the week. And it was a Monday. I wanted to put it up on the website. So I then took a screenshot of the label of the front of the can from the PDF and then put it into, and then sent the AI prompt a picture of a 330ml can and a picture of the front of that. And I said, mock this up for me, make it look like a 3D, make it photorealistic. It did. It looks better than a photo that I could have taken, and it does it in seconds. And I'm like, great, now go ahead and put it on a desk. It looks photorealistic. Great, put it on a small little pedestal and then add words next to it. It does that. Fantastic. You can make movies, you can do things, you can do mock-ups. So it's just the speed of which, and this is just a very simple variation. People make full-scale ads using like Sora or whatever it might be at the moment. I don't like doing that because I think that if you can see a fake ad of a fake person going, I like this, and it happens once, I hate that brand. In my mind, that brand is like blacklisted. If you have to get fake people to say the product's good, I'm like, no, get some real people. At least do it the right way. However, everything else though, there's so many ways that it can be used to just speed up everything. So just getting things done is way, way faster. If I need to send a mass email, it can all be done just at great pace. When I'm not sure like what the best way to reach out to people is, when I'm concerned about the website not being good enough, I can just pop it in there. What do I make new landing pages? Hey, great. So this is replicate this page, and I can just ask it to read the whole whatever particular product it is. However, make it more attractive for people who work in the freight industry. Great. Now it's a landing page, which I'll run my advertisement to the freight industry on, to that landing page that looks specific for them, and then they can buy from that page. So instead of it being generalized information, it's personalized information. And that's what makes things a lot better. Because when things are general, it's but if I can literally explain this is the ultimate product for anyone who spends all their time on the road, it helps with drivers' fatigue, etc. That sounds so much more attractive. I'm one of one. I've niched down, or niched if we're in America. Like no one has a driving drink. I don't have a driving drink. And so it's just using, and previously that would have been a good idea, but I'm like, oh God, who has the time? That's like a few days of work for like maybe. It's now half an hour or less. And so that's what's very, very cool.
Like, this is someone's going to listen to this and go and be inspired so much because you've given like such practical, simple, like certain steps that they're going to go and launch a brand. And if someone does that, let us know because there's so much value inside this podcast right now. Mark, I want to know the biggest challenge. People are listening right now. They're either going to be an entrepreneur or they are right now and they want to change the world. Or maybe they just want to change their world right now. Like, what is the biggest challenge? Something they can do today, this week, this quarter, this year to have their own breakthrough?
I think about like particular things that you like in business and that you don't like, and then start to challenge those own views. What don't you like about this? What do you like about this? What's your current relationship with money? What's your current relationship with success? When you think of people who are rich and people who are poor, what comes to mind? Because a lot of people like this idea that like poor people tend to be more like altruistic, Mother Teresa type of vibes, and people who have money, oh gosh, they might be a bit evil or a bit dirty. Like, oh, to get rich, you've had to have done some naughty things. You have to stalk on some people. That sounds like a bit of a narrative that you have. Why do you have this? And so kind of examine a lot of the views that you might have pertaining to success and doing well and achieving goals, and then realize why you have them, examine them. And if they don't make sense anymore, try and replace them with something better. Because at the start, what held me back a lot was my views on things. I had a terrible idea of success and a terrible view of like finance. I thought to do really well would mean you have to spend crazy amounts of hours, which is less time with your partner, with your family, with doing things. Too much money puts you out of potential groups. And so will my friends still take me seriously if I did actually start doing well? And all the rest of it. And also the idea that when you do start doing well, some of your friends literally make fun of you just because they're jealous, which means you end up losing friends. Am I prepared to literally cut my current people to get new people? Do I want those new people? So there was a lot of challenges, I guess, built into that and actually doing kind of well. And the other challenges were, which I was less prepared for, is people are going to try and take advantage of you and rip you off and muck you around. And that's a challenge. And it's a huge thing of tenacity to be able to push through it. There was more than a bunch of periods where my level of debt just got worse and worse and worse. And then my supply chain, because out of my control, I don't own a coffee roasting facility or a bar making facility or a place that can blend greens powders or a place that can make drinks at scale. So if they're facing problems, that becomes my problem. And if I'm in a huge amount in debt of taking a gamble and they're not actually doing it, there's so many things outside of your control. And so that can be very, very challenging and very scary. There was more than a few sleepless nights where you're like, what am I doing? Like, I am so far in debt. Like, I will have to literally stop this soon and work almost a year and a half in a job I don't really like just to pay off the debt before I get back to ground zero. And then I've wasted like 4 or 5 years. What the hell am I doing? But that was wonderful because it also forced me to try and push through and get things done. And yes, I think the biggest challenges were just realizing my own self-sabotaging habits, which a lot of people have, and they might not realize it. And so you tend to, there's always this kind of thing of like the biggest bottleneck for your success is you. It always comes back to you. And so at the time you're like, yeah, no, I'll do other stuff though. I'm great. Rah, rah, rah. And then until you actually start examining and thinking and how to improve and how to like level up, you realize, damn, actually, I need some serious personal development, some serious personal growth. And that's when I started actually doing all of these seminars a few years in and starting to realize, oh, damn, I got some serious like things and demons and stuff to like get rid of and change some serious views to allow myself to succeed and get things done. And that was a massive, massive like challenge to confront yourself with that and be prepared to literally change as a person. But through doing that, doors open and things become clearer, things become nicer, you become happier, you become more driven, and that's wonderful. But that's probably my biggest piece of advice and challenge is get ready to confront yourself and do it early.
Pause before we continue. The first way we as entrepreneurs introduce ourselves when we walk into a room, it's our energy, right? People feel that. And secondly, it's our face. How healthy do we look? So for the entrepreneurs out there who care about how they show up, I'd love to share with you personally. I've been utilizing some Korean skincare products now just for over a month, and I had no idea about them up until, even just 2 months ago. But it's by far one of the best investments I've made for my skin. I feel it's literally making me look younger, and it has this like glassy, super fresh look. And so this is the number one exported Korean beauty brand and skincare line in the world. The ingredients are second to none. Even pregnant women can utilize them, because out there's so many products that have toxins in them that really make our face not healthy over a long period of time. And so if you're out there and you want to match the energy that you output with how healthy you look, you can trial these products risk-free for 30 days. If you don't like them, send them back and get all your money back. If you're out there, if you're curious, check out the link below to learn. Let's get back to the episode. Let me just jump in for a second, Mark. Take a breath. I love your energy. Let's keep it going. So you mentioned about your breakthrough was figuring out that, having an amazing product with all these amazing herbs and spices, so to speak, and amazing potions wasn't everything. You had to start to learn to market the product. So what did you do after that? After you had that realization, how did you start to market it to the world?
Exactly. So like it's not about just having the best product or the most scientifically backed or being able to prove that it works. Like being able to say we have the best drink or the best bar or the best greens or coffee. It's not it. Like it's the way that you can communicate that to the end user. Like at one stage we were even doing awards because I knew that we were the best and I wanted to prove to everyone we were the best. So we started entering all these awards. We won for New South Wales the other day. Then we were the runner-up for Australia. Apparently, we're the second best company in Australia. It's ridiculous. We're the most awarded nutrition company in Australia. We have 22 different awards. Like we are, and I would have thought that having the most awards in Australia in nutrition and being able to prove it and then prove that our products work and they're backed by science and there's actual studies would have people clamoring to start getting it. But even with that, people are still like, that's cool. That's a nice to have. So the biggest realization was still with all these amazing bells and whistles, you need to clearly communicate and always be making content and make sure your marketing is really, really clean. People just don't care about the best. They care about what's nice. Think of the Apple iPhone, I guess. This is the worst of the iPhones, but I have it, and I'm sure a lot of other people have it. Why? Because it's really easy to use, easy to understand, and there's a simple value prop. So that's when I kind of switched across to making things easier, attractive, and pretty. So I kind of call it, like, I guess, the Apple approach. So not just being the best, but being that, but also the easiest and nicest and tastiest. And that's when things started to move.
Thank you so much for showing up for yourself, pushing through those challenging times, the breakdowns, the breakthroughs, the reprogramming of your mind so that you can bring this product to the world. This is I don't know any other drink that's as healthy as this. And so, this community here, please reach out to Mark, grab yourself some savvy and try it out. And if you enjoy this podcast, please share this with somebody else. Who do you know who's an entrepreneur or a high achiever and, or maybe in a profession that this podcast will really support them on their journey. So please subscribe, please like, please share, please comment the word breakthrough or your breakthrough moment from this podcast below. We'd love to hear from you as well.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Mark. See you next time.
Thank you.